What is up, you guys? Welcome to my personal channel. My name is Spencer, and this week we are talking about all things hystos, or hysterectomy. Now, before I start, I do want to let you know that I am going to be using some verbiage that may trigger dysphoria. It's strictly for medical terminology as well as clarification, so please exercise self-care when you watch this video. Alright, so just like my before things testosterone video, I'm going to discuss the different ways one can get a hysterectomy, the pros and cons of each, and what that may entail for you in the recovery period or anything else. Before we start, let's first define the terms of a hysterectomy. A hysterectomy, or a hysto, is the removal of the cervix and the uterus. It is not to be confused with a bilateral salpingo-oophorectomy. Said that right. Or a BSO. A BSO is the removal of the fallopian tubes and the ovaries. Now, 9/10 out of 10, these two things go hand in hand, especially if you're doing it for removal of the parts that you don't want, or removal so you don't get Shark Week. You would get a BSO as well. So a hysterectomy actually only refers to the cervix and the uterus, but 9 times out of 10, a BSO, bilateral salpingo-oophorectomy, is incorporated in this. With that being said, I'm going to address all the hysterectomies, which include the BSO. So when I'm speaking, I'm talking about a hysterectomy as well as a BSO. Alright, so now that we have the definition of a hysto, let's talk about the options that you have. There are 4 ways of getting a total hysto, as well as 4 ways of getting a partial hysto, which I will go into detail in a few minutes. So they each have the same outcome, they each do the same thing. It's just the approach that is taken for these things to happen. I'm sorry for all the shadow. Lighting is weird in my room right now. Alright, so let's first start with the TAH, or the total abdominal hysterectomy. What that is an incision in the abdomen. It's about 4 to 6 inches long, and it's roughly around the spot where your pubic line stops. So that incision, your muscles are going to be retracted with retractors, and the surgeon is going to be able to visualize everything that's in your abdominal cavity. It's then going to be removed of the cervix and the uterus, as well as the fallopian tubes and the ovaries, and then it's going to be stitched back together. So that the pros of that surgery is that the surgeon has full visible capabilities of your abdomen. So anything like endometriosis, which is scarring, or cysts can be also removed during that procedure. The cons of that surgery is that that is the first type of hysterectomy, other than a incision down the stomach, that has come to about. And since then, we have a lot more technology advanced methods of going about a hysterectomy. So though it's not considered barbaric or concave, you can just look at it as a little bit out of date. That surgery does require a 3 to 5 day hospital stay afterwards, and your recovery time is somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks. Once the incision heals, it is small. It does heal very well, and most of the time it either blends in with your hairline and becomes completely unnoticeable. The next option you have is known as a TVH, which means total vaginal hysterectomy. What that is that the surgeon will make a small incision above, trigger warning, the vagina. Then all of the procedures, meaning all of the cutting and pulling and stuff, is done through the vagina. How it works is they will cut away the uterus and the cervix through the vagina, and then pull it out through the incision that was made on top of the vagina. Then that line will be closed and you will be done. So it roughly takes about 1 to 3 hours, and the required time in the hospital afterwards is roughly 3 to 5 days. The pros of this surgery is that you won't have an abdominal scar, if that's something that you're concerned about. The cons of the surgery is that because there won't be any abdominal scar, the surgeon does not have a full field of vision when operating on the surgery. So what that means is that if you do have endometriosis or cysts or any other abnormalities within your abdominal cavity, the surgeon will not be able to see it and will not be able to remove it. Another con with the surgery is that you have to have a large enough vaginal canal for the surgery to take place, simply because the uterus and cervix are going to be going through that canal to be removed. If you have a restricted canal, or a canal that cannot support that transposition, then you cannot have this surgery. The next option you have is known as LAVA, or laparoscopically assisted vaginal hysterectomy. So what that is, it's similar to TVH, which was stated before. You're going to have a small incision on top of the vagina, and you're also going to have several small incisions in the abdomen. These are there for small surgical tools as well as the laparoscopic tube, which is basically like a small camera to go into your abdominal wall and visualize the cervix and the uterus, as well as anything else in the abdominal cavity. Um, the surgery lasts about 1 to 3 hours, and the cervix and the uterus will be taken out through the vagina and then through the incision that's on top of the vagina. So the pros of this is that you do have full visibility of the abdominal cavity, which means that if you do have endometriosis, cysts, or anything else in the abdominal cavity, the surgeon will be able to see it and remove it if possible. Another pro is that because there is full visibility, the surgeon is less likely to nick, hit, or knock anything out of place, off kilter, or shred any blood vessels that could possibly cause hematomas, blood clots, etc. So that is also a very great option and asset for the surgeon. The con of this is that you do have to have a bigger vaginal canal because, again, the uterus and the cervix are going to be passed through that canal. So if you do have a restricted canal, you cannot have this operation. But it is one of the newer techniques. Any type of laparoscopic assisted anything is a newer technique. So you also have to find someone who is a laparoscopic specialist or has done this type of surgery to feel very comfortable in what they're doing. What's really cool about this procedure is that your recovery time drops. It goes from 6 to 8 weeks to 4 to 6 weeks, and that's just because of the visibility that the surgeon has, so that you're less likely to knock anything out of place or cause any bleeds, etc. You still do have to stay in the hospital for roughly 1 to 2 days after surgery, but that is required for all the hysterectomies, or at least 1 night of hospital stay. And last but not least, you have the TLH, which stands for Total Laparoscopic Hysterectomy. What that is that the surgeon will make incisions along the abdominal cavity so the laparoscope and small instruments can fit in so they can get a full view of the abdomen. And the cervix and the uterus, as well as the fallopian tubes and the ovaries, will be taken out either through the vagina or through the incisions that the laparoscope and other tools fit through. You still have to have at least 1 to 2 days in the hospital, and the recovery time drops from 4 to 6 weeks to only 2 to 4 weeks. The reason being is because you don't have that incision on top of the vagina, which causes a lot of pain and a lot of stress. The only con of this is that you may have longer incisions for the removal of the cervix and uterus, and you may have more incisions than you would have for the other laparoscopic assisted hysterectomies. The one I'm going for and currently battling my insurance for is the TLH, which is the one I just mentioned, simply because I would like to get to work back to work as soon as possible, as well as not having to deal with a lot of the pain associated with having the incision above the vagina. I do a lot of strenuous activity as an EMT and as working in the vet's office, so I need to be in the least amount of pain as fast as I possibly can to be able to do my job accurately and effectively. For me personally, I do still have estrogen level. It's around 30, so it is lower than the average females, but it's still there. So I will go through menopause when I get a hysto, simply because my body still has the hormone it's used to having for the past 23 years of my life. For those who have vaginal atrophy or uterus or cervix atrophy, which you have no estrogen levels being produced at the moment simply because of the atrophy, then you may experience less symptoms as somebody who still has an estrogen level. If you have any questions or concerns, if you need me to go into any more detail about this, please let me know. I want to make this as condensed as possible just so everyone has information about what they can have and the options they have for hysterectomy. I do want to let you know that you can also get what's known as a subtotal or a partial hysterectomy, which all of the 4 types that I said in the total applies to that. What a subtotal or partial hysterectomy is, it's also referred to as a supracervical hysterectomy, which means above the cervix. It's either the removal of the cervix or the uterus, depending. With a subtotal hysterectomy, you are able to keep your ovaries and keep your fallopian tubes if that's what you wish, but you cannot have kids. You cannot give birth with a partial hysterectomy. So if you do want to have kids, if that's something you want to do, you cannot have a hysterectomy and have kids. The only difference is that with the supracervical hysterectomy or the subtotal hysterectomy or the partial hysterectomy, if you don't want to experience the withdrawals of menopause, then at least at this point in your life, then you have that option. So again, if you have any questions, concerns, problems, issues, qualms, please hit me up. If you have any other topics that you want to know more on the medical side of it, please hit me up. I do like doing these all things videos. I think I'm going to make that a normal occurrence of this channel at least like once a month or something. So if you have any ideas, let me know in the comments below. It's Saturday at Spencer. Until next time. A bit of clarity. When it comes to the subtotal or partial or supracervical hysterectomy, yes, an egg is released and can be fertilized by sperm. But if you remove the uterus from the person, they are unable to carry that egg full term. So let me rephrase. With a partial, subtotal, or supracervical hysterectomy, you will still produce eggs and they can be fertilized, but you personally cannot carry the child to term. Still produce eggs, can be fertilized. Bye.